or welcome back to UNG PSSA. We meet here once a week, same time, every time. Today we're going to be discussing the partial government shutdown and ICE funding, since they're obviously kind of hand in hand, maybe more hand in hand than we would like them to be. Some announcements. Some of these are just from last week as well. So we still have those pre-law workshops that I think, what's the pre-law, what's his name?
The pre-law student organization.
Or what's his doctor?
Kevin Grant.
Okay.
And I'll be on the 17th, so most important, I just want to plug this. I will be handing out to anyone who wants to start LSAT prep. I'll be handing out LSAT prep books. I just got them paid for by FDA. So if you want to start prepping for the LSAT, or even just see if it's something that you think that you could do, come out. The books have practice tests in them that we'll be doing.
Say when?
I believe the 17th is the new date, and it's all Mondays 12 to 1.
Yeah, they're all at the same time for the next, I think now we're down to 3 weeks. It's just a different pre-law sort of workshop. I know last week was, I think, the LSAT stuff, and so I think it'll be different. I can send it out to anybody that wants it, and I'll make another announcement and get in contact with you so everybody can know what you're talking about for those. And then also on Tuesdays, both the Democrats and College Republicans have their meetings. The Republicans are at 6:30 in Newton Oaks in the bottom floor on room 15. Yours are?
Downstairs in Young 112 from 5:30 to 6:30.
I love that they're not at the same time anymore, so you could go to both now, which is great.
Did the American First group set a time, or does that not get announced?
The what?
Did the American First group set a time, or did that not?
I have not received that announcement yet. And then I still have, I believe, yes. Wait, nope, I lied. The application for that internship is gone now. But yeah, if you guys have any questions about that, I'm happy to send over the information, and I'll let Cavalli tell us a bit about our attendance.
Okay, for those of you who have not been here before, we take attendance every week. And are we able to do anything for SGA again this week?
I was just about to check that, but I don't believe so.
Okay, yeah, while you check that, in addition to that, we have a sign-up sheet, and the sign-up sheet specifically allows you to list a faculty member next to your name, and if you do list a faculty member next to your name, we will contact that faculty member to make sure that they know that you did attend. Hopefully they will give you extra credit. We can't guarantee that, but at least we can verify your attendance. And of course, we are live streaming over YouTube, and you can always check our YouTube page, UNG PSSA, on YouTube to demonstrate your attendance, to document your attendance, or just to watch what we talk about. Okay? So, what's this week's topic?
This week's, really quickly before that,
Okay.
if you guys can go ahead and clearly, slowly, nobody's rushing you, I promise, put your student emails down on the list so I can read them, and then I can put our attendance in for SGA. So if you can, is there a place to add that next to it, across from it maybe?
Well, I suppose so. There are 2 columns here. So I don't think we're going to fill up the first column. So if you want to, after the faculty name, put your email address directly across from your name. Make sure you write it legibly so we can read it. Okay? And make sure it's a UNG email, all right, unless you're part of the community and not part of the university. If you're part of the university, make sure it's a UNG email. Okay, and I'll be passing this around a few minutes from now. Okay, so our topic is?
Yes, we are discussing the partial government shutdown and ICE funding. I know there's a lot of ways we can take that, if anyone has a place they'd like to start.
What's the connection between those two other than the airport? I'm gonna be honest.
Okay, so it's basically that I think the 2 sides had tried to come to a resolution to continue just the government funding, all the above. And from my understanding, Democrats in the Senate and House, maybe, were not too keen on continuing to fund DHS as a whole because it encapsulates ICE. And so obviously a lot of them are against the actions of ICE right now, so they're not in support of continuing funding. Part of what makes it a little murky is that through the big beautiful bill, Trump has already approved funding for ICE for the next 7 years. So honestly, in my opinion, everybody can obviously please form their own. But it seems as if the American people are the ones getting kind of the bad end of the stick, and the TSA and all these other people that are not getting paid, when ICE agents are getting paid regardless, and that's what's being protested. So it's really messy. I know everybody has a different perspective on it. That's just how I see it. But yeah.
Oh, I completely agree. I had to take my mother-in-law through the airport not long ago. The regular Americans going through TSA are footing the bill. It is crazy. And I was there, and it wasn't as bad as the other days that the line was literally out the airport. It is really bad. Unfortunately, I'd say unfortunately, just because of my personal opinions. Yes, the Big Beautiful Bill is allowing ICE to be funded, even though this doesn't, the funding for DHA doesn't really directly impact them. What at least I see that many Democrats are making the advocacy for is like, okay, we need to implement these changes because the vast majority of Americans are not against the work that ICE is doing, they're against how it is being conducted. Latinos, a lot of people are supportive of a comprehensive, deportation of people who commit violent crimes. That is absolutely normal and standard for Americans. The idea is that they're saying these actions that ICE is committing, allowing these individuals to go masked, to go without, really a review, without judicial orders into people's houses. This is allowing for Americans to die, and it is catching a lot of people in a net that classifies them as criminals when they're not, or violent criminals when they're not, and people are not really caring about deporting people who are not violent criminals. So this is how I see it. I see it like, yes, regular Americans are footing the bill for this, but the reasons are is because they believe that ICE is probably not conducting the mission it set out to do as optimally or as legally as they are trying to do it right now.
I really agree with the sentiment about ICE. I think kind of the issue with the funding is that we've seen like over and over again with the way things get funded. This is just like a bipartisan issue. I think is that like we love to hold things hostage whenever the other party is in power or something we don't like happens. Like TSA is essential, but it's kind of being held as held hostage for the ICE funding, and we've seen that before with like government shutdowns and where people will withhold funding until they get what they want, and it's just kind of it's a toxic part of the American politics system that I think we need to like move past. I think if there's things that we can't agree on, then that should be saved for that docket rather than us holding back everything and like we're not funding essential services like the TSA just because we're mad, we're upset. It's I really am a fan of TMZ right now. I never thought I would say that because they're really focusing on like getting politicians who have like or during the government shutdown they're going to like Disney World. I think it was like Ted Cruz was seen in like Fort Lauderdale and so it's really like holding them accountable, and I think that's really something that we should do is like this Democrats, Republicans, a bipartisan issue here is that like we disagree, but also at the same time we agree that things need to get handled, and we're watching our politicians like kind of play with us, if that makes sense.
I agree. I think I'm not trying to generalize when I ask this question, but I'm just genuinely curious because it's like a pattern that I'm just not sure can be fully ignored. I could be totally wrong. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Were there any government shutdowns that were this long or this intense or this extreme in recent, like, liberal, when like a liberal was holding most, executive and having maybe some sort of power, and I don't know.
There were, but I don't think it was as
Like, isn't it weird that it happens 3 times on one and none on the other?
I mean, for me, it kind of makes sense because I feel like the Republicans are like more like pushing towards their agenda, which I think is like fine and admirable. Like you're gonna actually like go for what you believe in and stand for, versus where I feel like in Democratic administrations, it's leaned more towards like we're gonna try and do like bipartisanship to like get our bills and like things through so we don't like get held up as much. Even if it isn't in the best interest of like the Democratic Party or what the Democrat voters want. Just because they like playing the game a little bit more. I think Trump, because he's such an outsider, is like kind of led to this like very divisive and held up blockade of like how we're going to like approach funding and even like passing bills.
The last time I remember the conservatives holding up when the Democrats were talking, I think when Trump in his first term, he had like redone, was it Medicare or Medicaid, or he had his thing where he like redid this, and I lowered insulin prices, which was done before, and then he's like, now I did it, and then Biden repealed his and went to say, now I did it, and then the Republicans, I'm pretty sure, held it up. Just because they wanted to just make a scene out of it and have time to say, hey, this was already here, why did you take it down? So that became a thing. When it had been done like 3 times in a row, they kind of take it down and then they redo it and they say, I lowered insulin prices.
Just to clarify on this, first, it's a partial government shutdown. Most of the government has been funded, it's been signed into law. The argument is over, actually the argument is over TSA funding, as well as ICE, restrictions placed on ICE. So it's Homeland Security that's had part of their budget not funded. It's going to become more and more common. It has become a partisan tool. It's happened before. I mean, there have been partial government shutdowns and complete government shutdowns that have lasted for weeks. The one in 1996 went for 3 weeks with a total government shutdown. And it's been happening more and more. Less and less of the annual budget has been approved every single year as more and more arguments between the parties pop up over funding this and funding that, and et cetera, et cetera. So yes, it has happened. It has happened under both Democratic and Republican administrations, and I would be very confident in saying it's going to happen more frequently in the future.
I would like to add that and say, and I would say it is a clear response to like the Democrats are doing to the extent that Trump is trying to enact his policies. Again, that is something that any politician is going to try to do. He immediately signed more executive orders in his first year than most presidents have signed in their whole term. And admirable that at least he's trying to stick to the agenda and deliver the policies that he has promised in his campaign trip. Again, there's going to be blowback, and this is one of the things that can happen. People are going to hold up, his opposition is going to hold up. These ideas of also wanting to remove some of the powers for the minority parties, and I believe Professor Kalali could be attesting more to that, of what they've been trying to take a little bit more. I think it was the filibuster. They were trying to do something with the filibuster recently that even some Republicans were against, because they can see the headwinds and they say, if we get rid of these, these opportunities the minority party has, then whenever we get to be the minority party, because it's not if, it's when, because it's a change of time. Sometimes Democrats win, sometimes Republicans win, and it's going to be a change of tides. Then they'll be less able to stand against whatever policies the Democrats want to implement. So it is something that is natural. It is uncomfortable, but many Americans only care so much only because it includes TSA. Majority, now I stand in the idea that most Americans only care whenever it affects them. Whenever it is their gas going up, their grocery prices going up, or they have to wait in a long line in TSA. They do not care, for sad as it may seem, that 2 Americans got shot and killed, that federal law enforcement office, that ICE officers are able to go without cameras, without masks, that there are kids being pulled out in cages, in sometimes precarious conditions. They don't care about the people who have died in custody. They don't give a flying shit about any of those things. Majority don't. Because it's hard for them to think about that whenever my line at the airport is long. Because my groceries are going up. And it only became so much as an issue is because the lines are long.
Yeah, I think that's right. One of the things we learned from the 1996 government shutdown, I know I'm going way back in history here, but one of the things we learned is that people care when it directly affects them. Because one of the arguments going into that shutdown was, let's shut down the government and see if anybody notices, see if anybody pays attention. Well, when they had to wait in lines, when they couldn't get their passports, when they couldn't receive government services, the public paid attention an awful lot. And so, yeah, I think when it affects most of us, that's when you get public opinion. Quick clarification on the filibuster. Yeah, both parties have wanted to eliminate it. Whatever party, it's a partisan thing. Whichever party is in power has talked about eliminating the filibuster, but the majority in the Senate. Fortunately, they never do, because cooler heads realize that someday your party is going to be in the minority, and then the filibuster becomes very attractive when you're in the minority. Now, the filibuster has been a problem for solving a lot of this. TSA funding is a budget issue, and I hate to get too much into inside baseball here, but budget issues are solved through something known as reconciliation, and there is no filibuster for reconciliation. So when it concerns budget issues solely, you can use reconciliation, but that's limited to once or twice a year, and it has to be a budget issue. So TSA funding could go through there, but the limitations on ICE aren't a budget issue. And so that can't be solved through the reconciliation process. It has to go through the normal legislative process, and that's where the filibuster comes into play. And that means you have to have the support of 60 senators, rather than right now the majority is 53 Republicans, so you'd have to get at least 7 Democrats on board before, or if Republicans wanted to get their way, or I'm sorry, if Democrats wanted to get their way, you'd have to have at least 17 Republicans to go along with Democrats, so that's not going to happen.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I actually like to somewhat disagree with the people don't care until it affects them. I just want to twist it a little bit, is that I don't think people care until they're told to care. I think Ukraine was a great example of this, right? So it's all over the news, and you know, everyone's saying, oh, this is a massive problem, and all your friends' Instagram profiles have a blue and yellow flag in it, and then the news stops talking about it, and then I was talking to people the other day that didn't know that the war was still happening. Well, because you weren't still being told to care about it. And so for like things like kids in cages, they build cages because you can't build enough jail cells at once to hold all of the immigrants that you're trying to process to deport. So that's why they have cages. It's nothing new. This administration actually at times of frustration is deporting less than previous administrations than previous times. But you're being told to care about it as a problem. Here's another example. You look at Minnesota versus Texas. So Texas actually has far more deportations than Minnesota. But in Minnesota, all their news, all their government's saying this is terrible, we won't cooperate with ICE. They're actually telling their police agencies, their law enforcement officers, to combat ICE. And now all of a sudden you have unrest, you have violence, you have people, you know, like all these close terrible things where she hit the ICE agent with her car, did she not? Well, this stuff isn't happening as much in Texas because they're not being told that it's a problem. I think people do so little research. They're so unwilling to have critical thought or to form their own opinion. And I think they just care about whatever they're told to care about.
One quick, forgive me for interrupting, but I'm passing around the attendance sheet. Don't forget to put your email address, your UNG email address next to your name, in fact.
100%.
Sedona, did you want to say something? Then
Just really quickly, I forgot to say this earlier while you're saying that. We are still planning on having a game night on the 9th. So, I don't know if there's a time that works better for everybody. Like, if you had to pick a time on the 9th, what would y'all say?
What day of the week is it?
Great question. Hold.
Probably Thursday.
If today's the first.
Thursday?
It's Thursday, yeah.
We got the greatest minds.
I think so.
I don't know, like evening, I guess.
Evening, like
6 p.m. to 10.
But not too late.
Not too late.
5:30.
Okay.
Yeah, anything like
5:30 to.
anything like after 4 works.
Okay. Cool. Thank y'all. Sorry.
We can
Yeah,
finish late.
maybe.
Finish late to home.
Oh, okay, but
Go ahead,
I think that's an issue. Like with everybody in the idea of like the masses. Like, of course, not everybody's going to be us, where we're all dorks and like sitting around in a circle and talking about it, like scheming about, ooh, I don't like this, I like this. You know, it's like a lot of people just love the news and like to sit around on their butts and not really care about anything until they're told. I mean, that's a problem with the left and the right. So I think it's like almost a null argument. Like it just doesn't. It doesn't suit. Like, of course, there's going to be people like you could say the same thing where it's like people didn't care about like getting the immigrants out of the country, like ICE and that, until Trump was saying build the wall. That, you know, that was something that the Mitt Romney campaign didn't really care about. I mean, they focused on the economy, and so it's the same sort of thing where you're just focusing on what to care about, and also I think that still doesn't mean it's wrong. You said people didn't care about the war in Ukraine anymore because like no one knows about it that's going on anymore. It's not in the news. But that doesn't mean that what Ukraine is going through is like null and void now.
Oh yeah.
And the same thing in this country, like just because like this is what we're paying attention to now doesn't mean that it's invalid to pay attention to. Or if like, you know, a bigger story comes out in 2 weeks and people stop paying attention because, you know, Americans' attention span, then that doesn't mean that this is all of a sudden like a topic that isn't important to care about or call out or even discuss. So I think it's just like, I don't agree with you there.
I think that inaction, you know, so it can speak louder than action sometimes. So when people are inactive about something that's going on for years and years, and then they're told it's a problem, and now they're very active about it, but they're reading more headlines than they are facts. They're reading, oh, someone died in custody, but they're not reading what happened, and they can't even tell you the name of the person. Then it's like, okay, well, why are you so upset about it? It seems like you read this in a serious tone before a commercial break, and now you're upset.
Go ahead, Tyler. Finish.
Sorry guys, I was spinning. I think it's kind of disingenuous to say that people are being told to care. I think people are seeing things in the news and seeing things on social media and seeing things in articles, and they're making that decision to care about these problems. Like, people are seeing American citizens being detained by ICE. People are seeing families being ripped apart. People are seeing people getting killed by ICE. They're making that decision based off of what they're seeing, not because a political party or an entity is telling them to care. They're just caring.
I have a question about your protest.
I would love to answer this
I
question.
wanted to ask in class earlier. We discussed the ISOP protest a bit in Dr. Kelly's class this morning. So for those of you that were there, sorry you have to hear it again. But I wanted to ask more about the Students for Progressive Society and like how that all came about. Have they been a thing on UNG? Or are they sort of an outside organization that comes in and puts out a message? Like what?
No, so
as
they're-
you were saying, I don't know that group maybe as accurately as it could have reflected the mindset of like UNG students who wanted to do that anti-ICE. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I first of all, SPS has existed since, I believe, last year is when they started. I think it was the second semester last year that they were approved as an official student organization, and they've been around since before that. So they're a student org. They don't come from outside or anything. It's a student org.
Were they part of the MSA protest or not?
I think some of the members were, but they weren't
Not official.
one. Yeah, they weren't. It was us and the MSA orgs that were part of that.
What was the MSA?
MSA was the Multicultural Student Affairs Office that existed until Donald Trump's anti-DEI policies forced the hand of the University Systems of Georgia to crack down on DEI policy in
So
classrooms.
a little history. I don't think the SPS is part of any national organization. I could be wrong on that, but it's not like Turning Point USA, which is a
Okay.
national organization
Or
that
even
tries to
like
establish,
Young Dems or College Republicans,
right,
like all of
that
those.
tries to establish chapters on campus. But in fact, the Gainesville campus, or actually I should say back when it was Gainesville State College, and actually into after consolidation, there was a group there known as the SPS, Students for a Progressive Society. I don't know if there's any connection between what that group was, because they now have College Democrats over there, and I don't think the SPS is over there. I don't know if you can correct me on that.
Yeah, so
But now there's one over here.
Yeah, so SBS started last year, and they have slowly built their membership. And as it is in the name for Progressive Society, these are more progressive students. Which young or college Republicans, we attract those students. What?
You said college.
I'm sorry, college Democrats. We attract those students, but they have their own organization now where they're doing more organizing on campus than us. But what was your second part of your question, Sedona? I forgot.
I was just kind of clarifying that maybe they weren't reflecting, like I think a lot of students saw that and they were kind of caught off guard on campus generally because they were like, oh, I didn't know everybody like felt so strongly about this, but I was kind of asking do the college Democrats feel that strongly about that, or was that more of a push by the progressive?
I think that we feel the same. I'm sure that SPS has some further left ideas about ICE agents and what they want to do with ICE than college Democrats do. But it was a joint effort to plan that protest between both organizations.
If I could jump in, there is a reason for groups like SPS and Turning Point, and that is, you're going to take a picture of that? Or? Yeah, okay. There's a reason for groups like SPS and Turning Point, and that is that they are technically nonpartisan groups. Unlike the college Democrats and college Republicans, these groups are nonpartisan technically. Nowadays, ideology and political party are very much intertwined. So in reality, the story may be very different, but technically they're nonpartisan, and that frees up groups like Turning Point and SPS to do things that the UNG Democrats and UNG Republicans could not do, because the university is not going to support overtly partisan activity. So the way to get around that is to create an ideological group which is not technically partisan. It may be closely intertwined with a particular political party, but it's not technically partisan. And university rules and university system rules have not caught up with the alignment of parties and ideologies. They're still back in the day when political parties were the main driving force. And so that's why I think that's why these groups sort of organically formed on campus.
Just a little bit more context to what he just said is that there is a College Republicans and a Turning Point USA, but they are the same organization. They have different UNG Connect pages, but it is the same officers, it's the same members. They are the same organization. SPS and College Democrats are very separate. They have completely different officers. They have completely different members than College Democrats do. But we do care about the same issues, and we will partner up on issues as long as it is something that the College Democrats want to be a part of.
And when you say that Turning Point and the College Republicans are the same group, they are different organizations, and they were chartered and recognized by UNG.
But they have
as
the
separate
same
organizations, but they have the same president, the
Yes.
same officers. They meet at the same time, or they sometimes meet at consecutive times in the same room.
They meet different days.
Okay, it may have changed this year, but they used to meet
I'm pretty sure that.
on the same day. But yeah, it's basically the same people for both organizations. Now, there's a lot of overlap in the College Democrats and the SBS too, but they're two different organizations. They're a little bit more distinct from one another than the Republicans in terms of.
I think it's important to like not characterize everybody that was at the protest for believing the same thing in the same way that everybody that counter protest doesn't necessarily
I
believe the
wasn't
same
trying
thing.
to at all. I was just
Yeah.
trying to clarify because I know that some of the stuff I saw from students was like, obviously you see one person acting extreme and they're followed by a group of people behind them with signs that say similar things.
Yeah.
Of course they're gonna think it's all the same. So I just wanted some clarification.
Yeah, and that was something that we saw like kind of all across campus, is that with these things where you're trying to like make a movement or make a stand for something, everybody kind of gets grouped up into into things that maybe they don't even necessarily align to. It's just hard when you're like getting a crowd together to stand together for something to like be able to differentiate the differences in the nuance of things. So and that was something that I saw an issue with, but at the same time,
Yip Yap was the place to be when that was going on.
Yeah.
It was a war zone. It was a war zone.
How bad would you go back to
So bad.
I have something about that. What you said about Turning Point, and I know that here they're very close related. I've actually met the guy with the hat that I
Ryan?
think leads.
Ryan.
Yeah, Ryan, who leads. I think Turning Point Republicans. I don't actually know. And you said he doesn't need the wheelchair.
No, I said never mind.
Yo!
That's not what I said.
I thought I heard he doesn't.
Whoa.
I really thought that's what I heard.
This
I
would be
was
a
very
quality.
surprised.
No.
I heard something about wheelchairs, but Brian, who leads both those organizations, but what Turning Point allows, I think, especially at like larger universities, because you go to somewhere like UVA, you have the Republican card, you have what I call the Fox News card. That's actually, I think, the best descriptor for it, right? Like whatever the GOP says, that's what you believe, and so, if you believe we should be in Iran, we should be in Iran. I think what Turning Point allows is, especially for younger people, like if you look at the statistics for major issues like younger conservative men don't support Israel near as much as the older evangelical crowd, things like this. So I think that Turning Point actually allows you to say, I've been conservative my whole life, I have some mainstream conservative views, but that doesn't mean that because it's said on Republican news that it's attributed to me. And so I think that that's what it allows to do, even if most of the members are the same.
Yeah, but I think Turning Point USA and college Republicans here is kind of reflective of the rhetoric from younger conservatives in general. I think the lines are blurred. I think especially college-age white men are
Ideologically?
yes, ideologically, politically, like with college Republicans and Turning Point USA.
Yeah, it's the case for everyone.
I was gonna say-
I don't think we can separate it anymore.
Right, I was gonna say even like you could even be more broad than just college level students. Like that's just in general with what the rhetoric of the Republican Party is now. It aligns with what Turning Point USA has been doing since they've been founded. The Republican Party has just shifted towards more populist leadership like Donald Trump, which attracts people from populist organizations like Turning Point USA and further even back the Tea Party. So I think, yes, they're separate organizations. Yes, there are some moderate Republicans who aren't part of TPUSA, but for the most part, you're going to see a trend of, well, if you're a college Republican, you're probably in Turning Point USA.
it's just like we've become very factionalized and split like right down the middle. I feel like even like when I look back in like history, and I see a lot of different organizations, farther left, farther right, even in the middle, and I see like how factionalized we've become, because even like we have the four groups, the Progressive Society, the Democrats, Turning Point, and Republicans functions more like two groups. You have your two sides.
What should do we? That's not the horse do we?
No, but I mean, I just think like it really kind of, and we've seen the issue with the funding. Everybody's become factionalized. It's like it's hard, and I'm not even saying to like find a middle ground, but also like more nuance. Like I think that there's a lot of times like you don't even necessarily agree completely with the people on your side, and it leads to like not as well developed takes, or we're watering down everything on both sides, so where like you don't get middle ground. Like there's a lot of people who don't like Israel on the right and don't like Israel on the left. There's a lot of people on the left who like Israel. It's kind of like it's a mixed bag, and when we water down the nuance, we like lose track and we don't make as much progress, because ultimately like we agree on a lot more than we think we do.
Yeah, and I there are organizations on not just our campus but other campuses that do try to bridge the gap. Bridge USA, for an example, there is a chapter here and on the Gainesville campus, Bridge UNG, and also us, PSSA. Like we are technically we are a nonpartisan organization that come together and talk about political issues, but even still, there is almost a lack of wanting to bridge the gap from organizations. And as an example, I can use the college Republicans on this campus. Their current leadership does not want to do anything with the college Democrats. We have tried in the past. We have done events in the past. We did a voter registration event in the past. But the more politics became populist, the more the rhetoric shifted, the more we didn't want to work together. And it's not just because of them, it's also because of us. I was getting there, Sedona. Yeah. It's not just because of them, it is because of us as well. But there are members in Young Democrats who don't want to work with the college Republicans. And I have to respect that as their leader, even if I want to form some sort of bridge.
Mm-hmm.
But with Bridge UNG, the Democrats responded to them. They never got a response from the Republican leadership. And that's kind of part of the issue.
I think if I can trace back to where it happened exactly, it's
I can tell you.
obvious. Well, no, not that time.
Oh,
It didn't help.
did not help.
I did not. I remember after the 2024 election, you came up to me. I think we were talking about maybe doing something together with both college Republicans and Young Democrats for the election, and then we ended up not. And I'll say that, not that Ryan was ever like, yay, let's do it. Like, not that he was ever being like super supportive or anything, but I do remember, I want to say it was after the election results, like we didn't end up doing anything together, but not for any particular reason. But then after the election, I think we were thinking about doing something again, and then you were like, I think it'd be best if just like as organizations, we like took space from one another on campus.
That was because membership from Young Dems at that time didn't want to interact with college Republicans because every single Republican, not just college Republicans, were gloating, and we didn't want to hear that. They didn't want to hear that from the win. When we decided to come back, we were working on it at the beginning of last semester, and then Charlie Kirk was shot. And that was another point where anything that we were going to do to work together went out the window, which is fair. And then, we never asked or did anything again.
And I see what, I mean, it's not that I don't understand why. I think it's just, like, again, and it's not that we have, like, this major polarization on
Right.
campus either. I mean, there are some occasional literal, like, hate crimes that occurred, but that's very, very, very far and few between. Some of them are not even technically, they don't start political, but then people hear about them and, it turns political.
Yeah.
But I just, like, trying to nail down why this bridge cannot be built, I think is at this point, it simply is too emotional. I mean, every single day I still go on Yik Yak and it's like Low Kirk genuinely. And it's like, must we continue? Must we continue with this? Really? Truly? Like, because it's not helping anybody at the end of the day. Like, whether people find it funny or not, some of them get me. I mean, I can't lie. But whether, I don't know, I think it's almost too, in like, people trying to be just like funny or something has put a big gap between people.
Can I throw something in for your debate?
Let's get
Go
what
ahead,
people
Sam.
were gonna say first, and then yes.
I just wanted to say it's been happening and it's going to continue to happen. Whether it's the important assassination of Charlie Kirk turning into Low Kirk genuinely and like doing this to any Republican, it is not great, right? It's not great. It's been happening and it happens from side to side, and it's rhetoric that is being pushed now that it's gathering a lot of attention. And I see, well, yes, there's pressure from organizations here in college that they still don't want to collaborate. I feel like still it is something that they must strive to do, right? There's always going to be people who are laughing that, you know what, about them brown kids getting deported. Straight up. I was in the Army and I've heard very, very harsh things from people that I was just like laying in the mud with next to
I don't
them.
want to
It's like,
say the jokes are one-sided at all. That was
no,
just my
you're
example,
good, you're good. I never implied that you did. I was just saying that like it's hated coming from side to side, but there is still this necessity for compromise. And when you see rhetoric like this being pushed by, unfortunately, people on Republicans in some college doing Nazi salutes, getting kicked out, or the White House posting things that might be considered insensitive, or from side to side. I'm just saying it's alarming when it's being pushed from the top, but that kind of rhetoric makes it these kind of bridging events harsher and harsher.
Disagree without being disagreeable. And I did post on social media the other day that I was very, very happy and very, very proud to see two different groups outside on the same day at the same time expressing two completely different views. And while there may have been discussions, there was nothing violent, there was nothing loud. As far as I know, campus security was pretty bored through the whole thing. They didn't have to do anything. And so, I mean, that's very heartwarming. And it's not just up until recently, but for many, many years prior to this, the college Democrats, the college Republicans used to engage in joint events fairly frequently.
Sorry, to that, real quick to that. It is still a point, like, yes, there's a lot of bad sentiments about this partisanship that is going on and this idea of like having discussions, but still, fortunately in the US, majorly speaking, even though there's been some changes, there's not major, killings or acts of violence that are like widespread, right? Fortunately, we don't see shooters going to any CPAC event and killing people, or the same thing in the Democrat side. It's such things that in America would be tragedies that are ever present in so many other countries. And the idea that you have this space to have these discussions and these people from very different sides still being able, sometimes not as civil as we hope, to have these discussions is still something to applaud. So we might sometimes just focus on whatever is bad, but we still have a lot of things as a country to be proud of, to being a country that allows for people to express themselves and talk about it. And that's what we were saying. I might not like that some people make jokes or comments about the assassination of Charlie Kirk, but are they in all their freedom to do so? Yes. And so as they are as making jokes that might be distasteful and all of that. That doesn't free them from consequences, that there may be some, but they are allowed to say such a thing.
By the way, quick aside, I don't want to hog the conversation, but just a note, Sedona. Well, speaking of Bridge, why don't we invite them to lead one of our discussions either the rest of this year, or I don't know, whoever's going to be around next year?
I think we
Maybe
had totally
can do that.
considered getting them more involved once they were a little more established. It seemed like we would be kind of like helping them get completely started, and we were kind of thinking, okay, let's let you get your thing
Okay.
going and then come in and we'll figure something out. But
Hopefully we
I think that
can
should
do
be
something
in the
like
cards soon. Have
Yeah.
you worked with them?
I can reach out.
Good.
They've reached out to us before, so I think
Yeah, but I will also say regarding the protests, yet there were very different organizations out there. I mean, TPUSA, us, and the SPS.
When I saw them in the group chat that TPUSA is going to do it at the same time, I said, maybe I don't
Well,
want to go.
Yeah.
TPUSA had tabling, and it
Yes.
was timed
Yeah,
on
just
purpose
happened.
to go with
Oh.
the tabling, right?
No,
No.
we
No?
didn't. We didn't.
I
Okay,
think
because
it's
that's
completely
it was coincidental.
unintentional.
Yeah,
that's
it was,
what I was told by
No.
people that were just reading
It was not-
newsletters.
it was-
That's what people thought.
Yeah, it was not. Our protest was not a response to Turning Point USA tabling. It was just so happened to be that we were doing it on the same day. But while I was out, they know me. They know who I am. And while I was out there, I had multiple conversations with some of their members and some of their leadership that were respectful. They were respectful the entire time. Nobody was disrespectful that was involved with Turning Point
They
USA.
said it in their own group chat. They said we're going to be respectful
Yes.
no matter what.
And were there people who were disrespectful? Absolutely. But it wasn't anyone that was part of our organizations, and it wasn't anyone that was part of Turning Point USA. And I gave them their flowers when they posted about it. I commented on their post and I said, we really appreciate you guys being respectful of us and allowing us to protest while also having a respectful disagreement. We can do that on this campus. Organizing behind it has been a problem in the past, but I can already see it getting better with future leadership of these political organizations.
I think it really comes down to emotional and political intelligence, if that makes sense. We all come in here
And to be fair, we all are 18 to 24. Nobody's expecting perfection.
but we can come here and have a mature conversation, and we disagree, and we agree on our disagreements, if that makes sense. It's okay. It's nothing personal, and that's something that a lot of people don't have, is that they maybe it's because they live in their bubble, or they're just immature, and they find a way to get riled up about everything, and everything is super, super personal. and it leads to just a mess where you need to come in with this like intelligence that other people are going to have a disagreement with you, and that's okay, and also being able to like formulate and be smart with how you're going to approach your opinions. And I think again the protest was a good example of that. Like when you come at it with like intelligence and like not be sloppy, it can be a good thing. And I think here's also a great place where we've shown that.
Not Congress, though.
I think, people so often get caught up in the difference between the people representing something and then the merits of the thing, right? Like this is a huge thing with ICE too. Someone sees an untrained ICE officer mess up because, I don't know, he wasn't trained or he's fat. I see like 300-pound ICE officers. And so they do something dumb, and then they say we should abolish ICE. And then you see, look at this illegal immigrant that killed this person. Illegal immigrants are bad. It's like you could do this forever. It's done about every issue. You look at the issue, you find someone who supports it, who did something bad because people suck, and then you attribute that bad thing to the merits of whatever they're supporting. That's done with political parties all the time too. And by the way, it's a country of how many hundreds of millions, like 360 million people at this point. And so to say, and so then to look, at a campus and even begin to think, well, was this side that represents the party, these 30 people that represent this party on this little pocket, if they did something bad, can we attribute that bad thing to the beliefs of 100-something million people? No. So, I mean, it's good to talk about and appreciate that people were respectful, but to even begin to say that could say something about their beliefs is just ridiculous.
To attributing those things, I believe that you do hold a point. We cannot attribute everything to just like the actions of certain individuals, but then again, if it's something that is structural, then we can absolutely attribute that. We can attribute lack of training to some of the things that has been going on in ICE, lack of standardized and care for due procedure. We can absolutely ascribe to them the fact that they are hiring people who are less than optimal to conduct this type of operations, right? I'm saying the work that ICE is doing in some cases, removing violent criminals, it is absolutely fair. The United States needs to protect its border. It's something that is just, it is there. It is a reality.
It's inherent in a nation.
It's inherent in a nation to have a border and have to protect it.
You can't really have sovereignty without it.
Exactly. But then again, it's never a problem of what it's being conducted. Again, you're always going to have people on the left saying, we should have open borders. You're going to have them everywhere, right? But majority of people say no. But majority of people are also against, holding kids and waiting for their parents to come out and just take and grab them. If it's a violent criminal, everyone is on board. When you start targeting communities, when you start targeting people, I would hear interviews with like many Republicans who were astounded to see their mechanic, someone that they have known for 40 years, someone who they've characterized as hardworking, as a good person, as a good Samaritan, as a member of church, just get deported and leaving kids and leaving family and leaving people up. You cannot ascribe everything to a few bad apples. That is true. But you can absolutely look at structural problems and point and say there is an issue, and there is an issue with ICE.
Yeah, so that's a part to a whole argument, right? So that's exactly what it is. What you're talking about is if it's true of the part, it's true of the whole. Well, it's not true of the whole, but it's still a part, right? Mm-hmm. What I'm talking about is two completely different things: the actions versus the merit. So to give an analogy here, it's saying, hey, look. I see like whatever, 20% of the ICE agents are so untrained that they made a mistake that's worth putting on a record. I'm making this up. Therefore, well, that's not of all agents, but it is 20, so therefore there needs reform, right? What I'm talking about is the actions of the ICE agents to the mission of ICE itself, which is simply to carry out the law that's always been in place. That's never going away.
Again,
so I'm talking about actions
people are not discussing that is the fact that there's people being deported. Like from at least from my circle, from what I've seen, there's people not debating that ICE needs to stop deporting people or just getting people. It's just how they're going about it, who they're getting, and are they actually accomplishing the mission that they said they're going to do. They want to get rid of violent criminals. Well, now they're not only just grabbing violent criminals. That is the point. I absolutely understand. It's the point that you're trying to make. But what I'm saying is, majority of people are not against the mission of ICE. They're against how it's being conducted, and the way that it's being conducted is actually, pushing what they advocated for. If they just want to deport a bunch of people for the hell of it, then sure, they're hitting their goals, but they're not deporting the people that they said they wanted to deport.
You mentioned the mechanic thing, right? So like, I mean, I've seen stories like this of people that committed any crime that, you know, has whatever statute of limitations, or that, you know, they can still be prosecuted for it, that they're good in their community, that they have all these merits, but then being prosecuted for a crime that they committed, no matter how long ago it was, they're still being prosecuted for that crime. Like, this is almost the only example where I see people argue it. And being fully honest, if you came here illegally and you never did go through the process, if you never did take the opportunity to go back and try to do it right, then you are still actively committing the crime, you know, every day that you wake up here, and that you don't declare that you're here. You know, every day you're still committing that crime. So it wasn't, you know, it might have been 20 years ago that you came here, but that just means for 20 years you've been committing the crime of being here. And I would say you got a free 20 years doing it the wrong way, and then after 20 years you were removed the same way that you could have been 20 years ago, or any day throughout those years. You know, I just don't see why this crime is different. Why people, because they get away with it for a long time, oh, it's been so long, can't we just forget about it? Well, I just don't see the difference. I don't see why it should be.
Okay, I hate to break this up, but I'm going to give you the last word, a very brief last word, and then Sedano will take us out.
Just because it's a crime doesn't mean it's like a just crime for the punishment. And like sometimes we have to look at morals and understand that the law isn't right. There's been many laws throughout history, especially in American history, which were racist or not morally correct, that were the law, and that had to be changed. And I think this is another example where maybe the law isn't the right law, and we need to reapproach what citizenship is in this country.
Well, yeah, but like, so to say that
I have to
I've been
say,
here.
I'm
No,
sorry.
you're
We're
good.
gonna
You're
have
good.
to- I mean, we can keep the discussion going, and I hate to cut this off because it's been a really good discussion. But Sedano, why don't you close us out for at least our
Yeah.
broadcast?
Thank you guys for coming out and talking about this. If you have any suggestions of what to talk about next week, let me know. Like I said, game night Thursday next week. I'll give you guys a reminder of that on Wednesday. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Keep talking, both of you.
The
Knock the cameras off.
The only way for someone that's been here, whatever, 20 years, to be able to stay without ever having to actually, go through the process on their own. Once
The
they're
orange